Mr. Phillips, this is for you to start with. Politics in the United States have become extremely polarized. Do you think that in California, the redistricting proposition passed by California voters will help in reducing the problem? And if not, is there a solution that you would propose for the rancorous, the rancorous dichotomy that we have seen in politics over the last few years?
Redistricting has actually benefited me, which I've been grateful for. The district that we now have is a district that's fairly conservative and moderate. So I feel very comfortable that the redistricting has benefited the constituents in my area and also has benefited me, and I'm sure Joan Buchanan as well. What was the rest?
Talk about the polarization of politics.
Over the last 40 years or so, the state of California has become, it was the 8th largest economy in the world. Or it was the 5th largest, now it's the 8th. During this presidential election, for instance, we have no input on who's going to get elected. People just take for granted that California is going to go Democrat every single time. And they don't even come here to fight for the state. They come here and use it as an ATM machine. What we need to do is to make the state more balanced and more competitive and to make the state more relevant. Right now our state's irrelevant nationwide. Our election is going to depend on Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania. California has the 8th largest economy in the world, but yet we're irrelevant? We need to find a way of bringing that relevancy back to the forefront. How can we do this? We need to strengthen our economy here in the state. We need to demonstrate to the rest of the nation that we are a strong state that's worthy of competing for. Thank you.
Well, first I'll tell you about redistricting because my current district is one of the reasons we had the redistricting initiative. It was gerrymandered back in 2000, and it takes in Walnut Creek going down through San Ramon, skips Dublin, a little slice of Pleasant, Livermore. I go over the Altamont into Mountain House, take a little slice of Stockton, go all the way up the Delta, take in little towns like Walnut Grove and Cortland, and end up taking in all of Galt, half of Wilton, and half of Elk Grove. So I take in parts, and I also, by the way, have East County and Contra Costa, Brentwood, Oakley, Discovery Bay, those communities. And when you take a look at that, you know, I've got 5% of my district is Stockton, 15% is Sacramento, and people from those communities could never have anyone elected to represent them because they just wouldn't have the name recognition and the roots in the core of the district. So I think when you take a look at the redistricting initiative, it's going to be great for the state of California. Our districts will be more compact. You'll have people, you know, that locally that they know, and I think it'll work. And I think 10 years from now, you won't see so dramatic changes in the district. So I think that's really positive. The top two, we're going to have to see what happens. You know, there's no doubt that the polarization you see in Washington, D.C. also exists in Sacramento. There are times we do work well together. I actually, ironically, had a bill in 2010 that wouldn't have gotten out if I hadn't had such great relationships with some of the Republicans. I couldn't, you know, we had a Democratic chair of the Public Safety Committee, and Kurt Hagman, Republican minority whip, helped me get it out, and eventually we got to the floor and had good support. But there are times we work together, but there are also times when it's very polarizing, and I don't know what it's going to take to change that.
All right, going on to a topic that's probably near and dear to you, Ms. Buchanan. What do you recommend to solve the K-12 funding issue in the state of California? We have a couple ballot propositions coming up, and at this point, the statistics show California is now 46th in the nation in spending on K-12 students.
California, when I was a child growing up here, I grew up in San Francisco. We funded our schools 5th in the nation. We performed 5th in the nation. As a state, we spent 5% of our per capita income educating our children. Now we're down to 3.3%. The rest of the nation spends about 4.2%. So you can see that it's how we get the gap. We spend $3,000 less per student now on average than the rest of the nation. I don't know what's going to happen. I will tell you with the state budget, the LAO came to us and he said, If you were funding the same level of program and services that you funded in 2007-8, that's when the recession hit, you'd need a general fund budget of between $130 and $135 billion. Our general fund budget next year is going to be $85 billion. So when you go from $135 billion to $85 billion, everybody takes a haircut, and a significant haircut. The governor's initiative, which I support, Prop 30, will add about $6.5 billion to that $85 billion. It doesn't bring us up to where we were, but it helps stop the bleeding. And for schools, and your schools locally, it will have a dramatic effect on the programs that they're willing to offer, and that's why I support it. Long term, California has the fourth most volatile general fund revenue stream in the nation. And volatility is not a friend to budgeting, and it's not a friend to education. And we have a tax system that was designed in the 1930s that really doesn't work anymore, but it's going to take a tremendous effort if we want to try and revamp that. And I'm not even talking about increasing taxes. I'm talking about coming up with a system that reduces the volatility where everyone pays their fair share. So I don't know what the long-term answers are, but short-term I do support Prop 30.
Mr. Phillips.
Solving the K through 12 education problem is something that I've been studying and working on since I decided to get into this race. We have, our schools are underfunded in this area significantly compared to the average across the state. In some of the larger school districts where they receive up to $30,000 per child per student per year, they have a graduation rate of roughly 40 to 43%. Out in Danville, Alamo, they have a graduation percentage of like 97%. And they receive about $4,000 to $6,000 per year per student. It's not the money that you throw at it, it's the quality of the education. It's the quality of the management, and it's how they budget the money. Our school districts have not been efficient in budgeting their money. We need to go through all of our departments, all of the budgets, find out where the money is, instead of just automatically giving these increases in budget funds. It's a challenge right now. My daughter, who's 8 years old, the funding gets cut. It's hard for everybody. Education has got to be a priority for everyone in this state. But we need to know where the money's at that we've already given the state. Our state legislators have been irresponsible in handling the money. It's demonstrated by finding $54 million in the Parks Department. If there's that kind of money there, do we know how much money is in other departments? Let's go through and audit the departments, find out how much money we have, and then start working with that number, that real number. Instead of trying to do what I feel is a lazy thing, which is to kick the can down the road and burden another generation with taxes.
All right. Mr. Phillips, Chief Executive Magazine has named California the worst state for business 8 years in a row. What are the top 3 things you would suggest that California does to change that fact?
Yeah. CEO has rated us 48, and it's horrible. It really is. Part of it is the way that we have our taxes set up. So I would agree with, I would adjust the tax codes to make it at least affordable for businesses to want to come to the state and to operate. We need to get our economy back online and to prove to the business owners that we are a stable environment and not a volatile environment, and that it is worthwhile for them to come back to. Again, we are the 8th largest economy in the world, and companies are leaving this area. It's horrible. The California that I grew up in, the land of plenty, education, was phenomenal. But we're not giving that to our kids. What are we giving to our kids? A mountain of debt and a state where businesses are leaving. So the first thing we have to do is we have to adjust our tax program. Maybe give tax benefits to companies that are relocating here. Develop a real energy plan with the federal government. We haven't built a new refinery since 1977, and that was in Louisiana. We have the capacity to build refineries here, no matter how much oil or gas is being produced. Unless we can refine it down, then it's just a backlog. If we could do that, we can add a couple of refineries, increase the tax base, fund some of the things for education. So I definitely feel that adjusting the tax rates, coming up with an energy plan that is fair, and also having the environmental regulations that are currently inhibiting some businesses from growing. We need to relax some of those environmental regulations.
Thank you. Ms. Buchanan.
Thank you. I've seen the report and understand it. At the same time, the Public Policy Institute of California did a major study of U.S. corporations and found that we have, about 1.5% that leave and about the same percentage that come in every year. So I'm not sure the situation is as dire as presented in that report. Having said that, with all the people I've worked with locally, I think we've got to find a way to give business more certainty. And that's one of the reasons I authored AB 800, because, if you're going to have a major development and you're committing, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, you don't want it to take 3 or 4 years to get through the permitting process. You want to be able to get through that process much more quickly. And I think we have to have the state and local governments work together, because it's not always the state permits that are the problem. Sometimes it's the local permits. But when we talk about business taxes, I probably am a little bit of a rebel here in terms of what I would do, but I would actually get rid of all your corporate tax breaks and just lower the rate way down. I mean, I think that what we need is more certainty, and we need everybody to pay their fair share. And why should I pick your industry over your industry to give you a tax break? And those tax breaks stay with us forever. I think we're doing it right with the Million Solar Roofs initiative. The legislature put a certain amount of money towards a program because they wanted to help the solar industry get started. So you're seeing the price of solar come down, but when the money's gone, the program's gone, and then the industry should be able to stand on its own. I don't think we should continue subsidizing industries 20 years down in the future when they're mature. If we're doing that, then they've got the wrong business plan.
Thank you.